One of the things that captured my imagination about sea shanties is the weird juxtaposition between these burly, dangerous, serious men and the fact that they work while singing. Not because it was entertainment, but because it made the job easier, more efficient, and safer. It was a tool of the trade. So when you think of a sea shanty, I don't want you to think of a song. I want you to imagine you're picking up tools from another time that you might have found in a corner of a dusty curio shop. If sea shanties sound strange to our modern ear, it's because we lack the context to understand them properly. But if you know what to listen for, sea shanties are kind of a time capsule to another time, to the golden age of sail. Before I tell you what to listen for, though, I want to tell you what shanties are not. They are not just any song about the sea. They're not just a song sung by sailors. As a technical term, sea shanties are work songs designed and evolved to particular shipboard tasks. Different tasks call for different types of shanties. So there were shanties for walking around the capstan to crank a heavy anchor chain. There were shanties for pulling on the halyard to raise the sails. There were shanties for working the pumps to empty the bilges. In fact, you can have a pretty good idea what was happening aboard ship just by listening to what was being sung. For instance, capstan shanties tended to have a regular marching rhythm to keep sailors in time as they walked in circles cranking in a heavy anchor chain. Often it told a story to help pass the time. Halyard shanties, on the other hand, had pulsing rhythms and shorter choruses. The choruses might have 2 or 3 beats in it where they would haul on the line. Some tasks were so difficult, like pulling in the sheets to trim the sails in high wind, that they needed a specific type of shanty. This is called a short drag shanty. It had short verses and short choruses, oftentimes with only 2 or even 1 hard pull to do the job, do a difficult job quickly. Sometimes shanties said exactly what they were doing right in the song. The chorus to one famous capstan shanty says, "Take a turn around the capstan." Anytime you hear heave or haul in a song, you can be pretty sure that's exactly what the sailors were doing at that time. Befitting their role as tools, there were lots of traditions, even superstitions, to go with shanties. Shanties were not sung on shore, they weren't performed, and certain shanties were reserved for certain times. There were ceremonial shanties to mark certain occasions. For instance, outward bounders were sung only when the ship left port, and homeward bounders were reserved for when the journey was finally over and they were headed home. Perhaps the most famous is the dead horse ceremony shanty, which marked the end of the first month at sea. Traditionally, sailors were paid a month's advance that in theory gave them some money to send home or to get gear for the journey ahead. Oftentimes, though, sailors ended up squandering this in taverns or brothels, or they were just straight up swindled out of it, which meant that they had nothing to show for a month's work, much like somebody who bought a horse that immediately died and had nothing to show for it. So to celebrate the end of the month, sailors constructed a crude horse made of shipboard materials. They paraded it up and down the ship, maybe shaking it in the shipmaster's face if they were being brave, and then they hauled it up the mast and dropped it in the ocean while singing a shanty called "Poor Old Horse." Shanties did not always make the transition to land very well. They were full of esoteric sailing jargon that landlubbers just didn't understand. So when performers out of the folk music tradition or out of the drinking song tradition got their hands on these tools, they used them wrong and started breaking bits off. For example, there's a well-known capstan shanty called "Paddy Lay Back." It includes an odd turn of phrase. You can always tell when somebody learned the shanty out of the folk song tradition because they sing, "Heave up all." It sounds at home in a drinking song, but the phrase is actually "heave a pawl." As the capstan turned, drawing the anchor chain, the pawl clicked teeth, keeping it from sliding backwards. If the capstan was turning, the pawl was up. So heave a pawl meant get to work turning the capstan. If you don't know about capstans or pawls, though, heave up all. And finally, there's the dreaded stunsail bones. A classic shanty tells about a whaling ship coming home after 6 brutal months at sea. The ship was in tatters, they're fleeing before a gale, they're trying to beat it home. One of the verses in the song is, "Our stunsail booms are carried away," referring to the studding sail spars that extended out from the mast, so all the extra sails. These sails that absolutely get ripped off in a gale. Non-sailors weren't familiar with the term, so it got transcribed as bones, which sounds cooler and much more piratical. So, the age of sail is long over, but the art of shantying continues as living history and as a time capsule to the past. And to prove that shanties are alive and well, and to let you practice what you've just learned. Yeah, we're doing it. Yeah. We got most of the roommates here. The neighbors know this is coming. It's not late yet, and I have special dispensation from our host to tack on a little bit extra time to my talk if I use it wisely. So I promise I will not drag this out unnecessarily. I will not waste your time. I think you'll be happy you did this. Those of you who actually know how to sing, this is not beneath you. Those of you like me who don't know how to sing, this is your jam. Because the whole thing is, as I said, shanties aren't music. They're a tool with a distinguished history. They sound better the louder you are. So the louder you sing, the better we are. Summary, if you can hear your neighbor, you're doing it wrong.
Oh, God.
And the last thing that I'll tell you about shanties is there's kind of an old line about the chorus of the sea shanty, which is it's like a lifeline thrown to somebody who's fallen overboard. It does not matter if you catch it at the beginning or in the middle or at the end, as long as you get it before the chorus goes by entirely. So we're going to do 3 short shanties. I've chosen them because they're famous, they're historical, they're fun, and most importantly, they're short. Now, this is an autograph.
Is that wrong?
Yes, it is wrong. And
There you go.
it's not gone either, so. Whew. I should have used lower proof rum. So, I'm going to teach you shanties. In theory, I don't even need to teach anything because they're designed to be picked up as you go. People would go from boat to boat and they would just pick up the shanties on the first time through. But because you guys are totally new to this and you don't have much time sailing, aboard the big whaling ships and whatnot, I'm going to give you a little bit of a primer. The first one is called Hello Somebody, and this is a classic halyard shanty for raising the sails. The chorus is very simple. It's just hello somebody, hello. But because this is a shanty, we've got to sing it shanty style. The hellos were when you raise the sails. So it's hello somebody, hello. That's what it's going to sound like. So you guys are going to get a chance. Let's do it together. Hello somebody, hello. This is great. You guys are going to love it. I'm going to sing 2 lines, and then we're going to sing the chorus. And
Wait, where's our 1 month advance?
You spent it already.
It's making rounds.
Somebody was listening. So this is Hello Somebody. I'm going to start off. You'll know when you get to the chorus. We'll all sing it together. Somebody's knocking at the garden gate. Hello somebody, hello. It's Bully John and his dirty mate. Hello somebody, hello. Bully John from Baltimore. Hello somebody, hello. I knew him well on the eastern shore. Hello somebody, hello. Well, Bully John is the mate for me. Hello somebody, hello. He's a bully on land and a bucko at sea. Hello somebody, hello. Oh, Bully John, I knew him well. Hello somebody, hello. But now he's dead and he's roasting in the fires up. Hello somebody, hello. Oh, 8 little sailors went up to heaven. Hello somebody, hello. But one looked back and now there's 7. Hello somebody, hello. Oh, round Cape Horn we all must go. Hello somebody, hello. Oh, round Cape Horn through the ice and snow. Hello somebody, hello. Nicely done. You guys are bona fide sailors. You got that. All right, this one is the OG shanty. It is so old that by the time most sailors learned it in the early 1800s, the ships that it was written for had already been retired. And yet, it's worked so well, it was such a good tool, it was so catchy that it endures all the way through today, and on tall ships today, you hear people singing it. This one, again, very simple chorus, and it's one of those choruses that tells you exactly what's happening. The chorus is, haul on the bowline, haul. But it's shanty style, and if you want to pull on it, you can do it. You're not required to, but you absolutely can pull on the halyard. So it goes haul on the bowline, haul, or in shanty terms, haul on the bowline, haul. Haul on the bowline, haul. And it's I will be singing Haul on the Bowlin' a bunch of times, but that's me. You guys will know when your part of the chorus comes in.
What's a bowling?
Question and answer period. I'm not going to steal from myself, but hold that question. Here it goes. It goes. Haul on the bowling, kitty, she's me darling. Haul on the bowling, haul. Haul on the bowling, kitty, she's in Liverpool. Haul on the bowling, haul. Haul on the bowling, kitty, she's a lovely girl. Haul on the bowling, haul on the bowling, I took my kitty for a walk. Haul on the bowling, haul on the bowling, you can sing most anything. Haul on the bowling, haul. A pint of rum, a glass of beer, a sailor likes his pint of rum. Haul on the bowling, haul. And that one is more than 200 years old, perfect and comprehensible, still works today. And the last one we're doing, you know which one we're doing. You ask about it.
I did?
Nope.
No. Yeah.
Joel?
We're doing the poor old horse. Your 30 days is up. It's time to celebrate. So this one is a ceremonial shanty, so it was not used all the time. It was only used one time. It was as close as you could get to a day of rest. It was as close as you get to being able to disrespect the master or the mate of the ship without being severely punished for it. It's got a two-part chorus. The first part of the chorus, you just agree. You say, and we say so, and we hope so. And the second part is I want you to lament. But it's not a sad lament, it's a smug lament. It's a sucks to be you lament. And that is a poor old horse. So the first part is, and we say so, and we hope so. So I want you to agree with me. And we say so, and we hope so. And now I want you to be smug with me. A poor old horse. One more time. Poor old horse. Got it. A poor old man came riding by, and we say so, and we hope so. A poor old man come riding by, a poor old horse. Yes. Says I, old man, your horse will die, and we say so, and we hope so. Says I, old man, your horse will die, a poor old horse. And if he dies, we'll tan his skin, and we say so, and we hope so. And if he don't, we'll ride him again, a poor old horse. For 1 long month I rode him hard, and we say so, and we hope so. For 1 long month we all rode him hard, a poor old horse. But now your month is up, old Turk, and we say so, and we hope so. Get up, you swine, and look for work, a poor old horse. Get up, you swine, and look for graft, and we say so, and we hope so. Well, we lays on and drags ye aft, and we poor old horse. He's dead as a nail in the lamp room door, and we say so, and we hope so. He won't come worrying us no more, a poor old horse. 3 more. We'll use the hair of his tail to sew our sails, and we say so, and we hope so. And the iron of his shoes to make deck nails, and poor old horse. We'll hoist him up to the foreyard arm, and we say so, and we hope so. Where he won't do sailors any harm, a poor old horse. We'll drop him down with the long, long roll, and we say so, and we hope so. Where the sharks'll have his body, and the devil take his soul, a poor old horse. Each and every one of you for indulging me. I had fun with that. I hope you had fun with that. I hope you learned something. You guys did amazing, better than I could possibly hope. So now we have time for proper Q&A. There will be no more singing. You're free.
Can we sing our Q&As?
Yes, you can sing your Q&A. I'd be impressed if you did. Sir.
So is it always like call response? And is the caller like a fixed person or like?
Yes. So it turns out that was a known role on the ship, the shanty man, and you could be whatever sailor, a nominally otherwise unskilled sailor, journeyman sailor, but the shantyman role was another hat you could wear. If you had a good singing voice, you're good at improvising, or you're funny, then you could be a standard sailor as well as the shantyman and get a little extra for it, because it was not for entertainment. It actually kept the crew together. It made the ship work better. If you didn't have a shantyman, then things kind of went to shambles.
Are there any shanties in modern navies today?
So funny you should use the word navy. Shanties were traditionally a merchant marine thing. The navies considered it sort of embarrassing or unnecessary. They prided themselves in silent drill, so they might have a fife or a drum or something to show that their sailors were well enough trained, and they tended to have enough people that they could do with a little bit of inefficiency, versus the merchant marine tended to be not well supplied and shoddier ships and not as well trained crew. So the shanties kind of filled the gap and made mediocre sailors into better sailors, or at least more efficient sailors. And to answer your question about if there's shanties in the Navy today, there are definitely a lot of sort of traditional Navy songs, but technically, because shanties are work songs for particular tasks, as far as I know, there's not that many of them. There's a lot of traditions, and there's crossing the line, and they might have songs associated with them. But we've replaced human power with machines on most of our ships, so I'm unaware of any currently used, technically linguistically correct modern shanties. Somebody knows about it. I don't.
I know there's a lot of shanties on the dirtier side about women and whatnot.
Yes.
Which tells me that there weren't women doing this kind of stuff on boats. Is
Nope.
there any gender stuff that you
Yes.
found in your
Yeah,
research?
there's so the three sort of isms that defined shanty culture, because it went unwritten down for a long time, and by the time they started writing it down, feminism. I'm sorry to say that. By the time they started writing it down, the two big isms were nationalism and racism, and so that kind of permeated it, and even sort of changed the lyrics in the process of bringing them ashore and writing them down. And sexism was basically not even really a thing. So it was just the water that sort of fish swim in. They didn't even notice it. But yeah, it's those were the bad old days. Things have gotten better now. There's not nearly as many women sailors as there are men now, but it's a much more gender balanced, and the shanties continue, but they're a little bit more tongue in cheek now. Yeah.
I think you used the word piratical.
Yes.
Is that a word?
Whose presentation is this?
It's a great word. It's a great word.
It's such a good Berkeley, so yeah.
Okay.
From where do you know this subject, and why did you decide to speak about it?
So my rule for Synapse Talks is anything that I find myself bugging 3 or more people about with the same conversation, I just write that down. Like, cool, that's my next Synapse Talk, and that way I can bother a group of people for 5 minutes and be done with it, rather than bother bunches of people for 2 or 3 minutes over and over again. So I found myself buttonholing enough people being like, "Did you know?" And so I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do the research and actually look into it. And I should say, partly for the record, that part of my research involved contacting 2 of the gentlemen that helped put on the Hyde Street Pier Shanty Sing, Peter Kasem and Walter Askew of Salty Walt and the Rattle and Rat Lines. And he was invaluable. In fact, he's probably face palming because I've straight up stolen some lines from him. So the best lines in this probably came from him. And he was responsible for a lot of the research. So any errors in this are mine. Anything that sounded good was definitely due to his console. So if you're interested in this, there's people around here who know way more than I do. More questions? Yes.
So we have to think about shanties as tools. You told the stories of those shanties. Do you know any technical reason why a shanty has evolved for a particular task, like the rhythm or the sounds? Or
So the short answer is that things like so the short drag shanty would be a great example. It's a tough task. Oftentimes trimming the sails is something that needs to be done now to respond to something. So they tend to be short verses at a fast tempo with simple lines, so that you can really bang out something that needs to be done. And a shanty they're not strict divisions between them. So a shanty may begin to be used for something else or blend into something else. And if it works well for that task, then now in retrospect, with anthropologists and linguistics and everything, we would classify it as a particular type of shanty. They probably didn't think of it as that. They thought of it as a tool that needed to do the job. Hope that answers your question.
It's also very noisy when you're on a sailboat.
Oh yeah.
And you need to coordinate with other people. So singing in sync helps you coordinate.
And it's worth pointing out that's one of the reasons why you don't whistle on a boat, because it's considered bad luck now, but it's because whistles like the bosun's whistle or just whistles were used to coordinate things. So if some landlubber was to step on a boat and just start whistling, everyone would be like, drop the boom, you say? Okay. And that is also why, as an extension of that, you don't whistle where?
In elevators.
While you work.
In the theater. You don't whistle in the theater because all the rigging and everything tended to be manned by ex-sailors. So it's bad luck to whistle in the theater. And the reason it's bad luck is because the sailor's like, oh, drop the lighting, okay. Like all good superstitions, the reason is gone, but the superstition is still there. So it's the same reason you have a ghost light on stage, and you don't say good luck, you say break a leg. It's all part of the tradition. It shows, and this, interestingly, it shows that you're part of the group, you're part of the in crowd. So even though there's no actual basis behind, it still has a safety function by somebody that doesn't know those rules really should not be left alone on stage. And the same traditions kind of go shipboard. Somebody that commits these faux pas is probably a danger to themselves and others and should be watched. So they're weirdly subtle, ongoing safety matters.
What's a bowline?
What's a bowline? A bowline is the king of all knots. A bowline as a knot is a magnificent knot with lots of good properties. That it's the rabbit goes up through the hole and around the tree and back down. That everybody can't actually tie, but they feel guilty about it. But a bow line as a line on a boat is a particular type of rigging forgive me, Walt, it basically comes out of the front spar and does things that I'm not qualified to talk about. But it did not end up being a particularly popular type of rigging. It was completely superseded by other sail plans. And so even though there no longer is effectively a bow line on any boat that sailing did ever, indeed most boats in the 1800s, the shanty continues. And my guess is, etymologically, you tied a bowline in the bow line, and then because nautical terms just get mushed about. Same thing with the studding sail booms become stunsail booms. It's like French. You just drop out half the letters and pronounce the ones that
We have time for one more question.
We got time for one more question? Yes.
Go ahead.
Instrumentation, percussion, anything like that, or is it all singing?
Yeah, it's traditionally just singing. They might have a fife or occasionally concertina. Oftentimes they had the instrument on board because they would do folksal songs and ceremonial songs. Sometimes a fiddler. In fact, in the can you go back to the picture of the capstan? We've got the nice folks walking around the capstan 2 or 3 back, or maybe 3 or 4 back. Right here. So oftentimes that area was a lot larger, and sometimes that was called the fiddler's green, and the fiddler would sit on it and just turn around in circles. So again, well, if you're getting seasick, maybe a boat's not the best place for you.
Wasn't Fiddler's Green where they die?
I don't know anything about that. I only know it in this context.
Fiddler's Green is the sailor's term for where sailors go when they die.
Huh, that's cool. You know another fiddler's green that I know more about? So that's all. I'm happy to talk about this at length. If this is of interest to you, if you had fun tonight, the Hyde Street Pier is always doing its thing. I tend to go there fairly often. So if you're going, let the list know and we can form a posse. But mostly, thank you for letting me share this with you.